During a nationally televised interview, Congressman Massie stunned the country by openly insulting President Donald Trump, calling him mentally disabled. The political world trembled in response. What followed was even more shocking. Vice President JD Vance stepping forward with unwavering determination to defend his president. The fiery backlash, the MAGA movement's outrage, and Vance's swift retaliation made it clear Massie's words wouldn't go unchallenged. The confrontation instantly became one of the most intense political moments of the modern MAGA era. As Massie leaned into the microphone, his voice laced with venom, he delivered his damning statement. "Donald Trump is mentally disabled and utterly unfit to lead this country," he said coldly. A deafening silence followed. Cameras kept rolling. Millions of Americans watched in stunned disbelief as the words hung heavy in the air. In homes across MAGA country, hearts broke, elderly supporters gasped. Military veterans sat in disbelief. Trump had given everything for his country, boosting jobs, protecting the border, and fighting for the forgotten heartland. And now, betrayal had come not from the left, but from someone once seen as an ally. Social media erupted instantly. Hashtags like #MassieBetrayal and #StandWithTrump were trending within minutes. Meanwhile, in the White House, Vice President JD Vance watched the footage, stone-faced, his jaw tightening. To him, this wasn't just an insult aimed at Trump. It was an attack on every American who still believed in Trump's vision for the nation. Vance didn't hesitate. "Get the media room ready," he told his aide, his voice low and cold. "The country deserves to know who Massie really is." That night, the world would witness a political reckoning unlike any seen in recent history. Just hours earlier, Trump and Vance had celebrated a major win: the passing of the American Renewal Act, a bill meant to strengthen U.S. manufacturing and secure the borders. But Massie had stood against it, casting a proud no vote. He didn't stop there. He was seen laughing with Democrats and mocking Trump's legislative success. Then came the leak. A private message from Massie to a corporate lobbyist surfaced. "I'll do whatever it takes to stop Trump from winning again. He's just a walking headline." JD Vance read the message over and over, anger building with each word. "It wasn't just opposition, it was betrayal, sir," a White House aide whispered. Massie's campaign just took in huge donations from the same groups trying to kill the American Renewal Act. They've bought his loyalty, Vance felt. The weight of disappointment settled in. Massie, once a principled conservative, had become a mouthpiece for anti-Trump forces. Vance straightened his tie. He wasn't just preparing a press statement, he was preparing to expose Massie point by point. As he walked toward the press room, he whispered, "This is for America's future." The room buzzed with reporters until Vance entered. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Facing a sea of flashing cameras, he spoke with conviction. Today, Congressman Massie insulted President Trump in the most vile way possible. But in doing so, he also insulted every hard-working American who stands behind this administration. Vance didn't stop there. What Massie isn't telling you is that he's taken huge sums of money from groups that want to see America fall behind. He was once a man of integrity. Now he's bought and paid for. That's why he keeps voting against Trump. That's why he used such disgraceful words. Gasps echoed through the room. But Vance wasn't done. Massie's not working for his constituents. He's working for the highest bidder. The country watched in real time as the truth came out. People cried. Veterans clenched their jaws. Mothers tried to explain what was happening to their children. For millions, MAGA wasn't just politics, it was family. And JD Vance had just become its fiercest defender. Massie's world collapsed fast. Alone in his office, he stared at his phone, paralyzed. Comments flooded in. "Traitor! Sell out!" MAGA will never forget this. He hadn't anticipated the sheer force of the public's reaction. Supporters gathered in small towns, waving homemade signs that read, "We stand with Trump and Massie, corporate puppet." In Kentucky, an elderly woman broke down during a local interview. "Trump fought for my family. Massie turned his back on all of us." Meanwhile, back at the White House, JD Vance wasn't finished. Massie had already begun trying to spin the narrative, reaching out to friendly media and calling Trump unstable. He even painted himself as a whistleblower. Vance saw right through it. "He's lying to save face," Vance said. "Now we go national." That night, he sat down for a primetime interview. His goal wasn't just to defend Trump. It was to dismantle Massie's credibility completely. The stage lights glared. As Vance took his seat across from the country's top news anchor, millions tuned in. "Vice President Vance," the anchor began, "Massie says Trump is mentally unfit and accuses you of protecting corruption. How do you respond?" JD Vance didn't flinch. "Let me tell Americans the truth," he said. "Massie used to serve this nation with pride. But about a year ago, lobbyists began pouring money into his campaigns and personal foundations with one mission: destroy Trump's agenda from the inside. And Massie obeyed." The room grew quiet. "We have the proof," Vance said, holding up documents. "Here are the bank records. Here are the shell companies. This is how Massie sold out America." The anchor leaned in, stunned. "Are you saying Massie was paid to oppose Trump?" Vance nodded. "Yes, he doesn't believe Trump is unfit. He believes the money he's receiving is worth selling that lie." The effect was immediate. Across the nation, people were furious. Farmers, truckers, factory workers, everyday Americans felt betrayed on a deeply personal level. Looking directly into the camera, Vance spoke one last time. "Thomas, you didn't just betray the president. You betrayed every American who believed in your words." Massie tried to push back online, accusing Vance of protecting a dictator and claiming the MAGA movement was falling apart. But Vance remained composed. He faced a roaring crowd the next morning, cameras from every major outlet watching. "Thomas Massie wants to look like a hero," he said calmly. "But real heroes don't sell out their country for a paycheck. Real patriots never insult the very people who entrusted them with public office." The crowd roared, their chants intensifying in rhythm. "Traitor! Traitor! Traitor!" And then JD Vance spoke the words that would echo across every major platform. In America, he declared that Thomas Massie wasn't challenging Trump because of disagreements over policy. He was doing it because Trump refused to be bought or manipulated. Cheers erupted, both in the room and across the internet. The clip spread like wildfire, quickly shattering viewership records online. Elderly veterans were seen tearing up, visibly moved by the vice president's passionate defense. Mothers gently hugged their children and whispered, "This is why we believe in President Trump and Vice President Vance." Back in Washington, Massie collapsed into his chair, his mind gripped by the sinking realization his career in politics was finished. His phone wouldn't stop buzzing with alerts, calls, and messages. Staffers ran frantically around his office, panic written all over their faces. "Sir, this is escalating fast," one aide said in a hushed, urgent tone. "Vance's speech has gone viral. It's everywhere. Protesters are now outside our district. Offices shouting 'traitor' nonstop." Massie's hands trembled as he nervously scrolled through his social feeds. His name was being torn apart online, that he was being accused of selling out his country. He had allegedly called the president mentally unfit. The fallout was undeniable. JD Vance had exposed him completely. In a frantic attempt to do damage control, Massie scheduled an emergency interview with a normally friendly media outlet. "JD Vance is lying about me," Massie cried out during the broadcast, his voice strained. "Trump poses a serious threat to democracy. I just said what needed to be said, the truth." But the public wasn't buying it. Americans everywhere rejected his version of events. In cafes, rest stops, and homes across the nation, people were reacting not to Massie's accusations, but to what President Trump had done for them. "He got my husband back to work when no one else even cared about our town," a tearful factory worker shared in a street interview. "And now Massie goes on TV and insults him? We're done with him." Massie didn't yet realize it, but the people had already made their choice. His political fate was sealed. At a town hall, JD Vance stood tall before a packed crowd. His tone was calm but firm, even though emotions were running high. "I didn't want this," he began earnestly. "But Congressman Massie made it unavoidable. He turned his back on President Trump without cause, and worse, he turned his back on every one of you. The room fell silent. Even the children sat perfectly still. Proudly holding small American flags, Vance lifted a folder filled with evidence. Massie accepted huge donations from groups that work against American interests. He laughed while voting down the American Renewal Act, which could have revived jobs in his own district. He insulted President Trump just to draw attention away from his own misconduct. Gasps filled the room. A woman seated up front started sobbing as the weight of the revelation sank in. He once stood for something, Vance said, his voice cracking, but he let corruption change him. Now he's lost all sense of right and wrong. As Vance left the podium, a disabled veteran slowly rose from his wheelchair and saluted. "You're fighting for people like me." "Thank you, sir, for speaking the truth." Vance returned the salute, shaking the veteran's hand firmly. "This isn't about politics," he replied. "It's about defending what still matters in this country." In a last-ditch effort to rescue his reputation, Massie called for a press conference. "These accusations are completely false," he snapped. "I'm the true patriot here. Trump isn't fit for office. And Vance? He's just a loyal lapdog." But just as he spoke, phones buzzed around the room. Reporters looked down at their screens. A breaking video had just been leaked from Vance's office. In it, Massie's voice was unmistakable. "As long as I keep getting paid, I'll block every Trump bill. Let the MAGA crowd whine all they want." The atmosphere shifted instantly. Reporters fired pointed questions at him. "Congressman, is that your voice on the tape? Were you really taking money to sabotage Trump's agenda?" Massie stumbled, sweating under the lights. He backed away from the podium, visibly unraveling as cameras captured every second. Then came the final blow. Vance's viral post. "Massie isn't standing against Trump for the country's sake. He's doing it because he sold America to the highest bidder." Within an hour, the post reached 10 million views. Across the nation, emotions surged. People weren't just angry, they felt betrayed. While Massie's approval collapsed, JD Vance became a symbol of hope. That evening, what started as a quiet night in Ohio turned into a pivotal moment in American politics. Families sat gathered around their TVs, stunned. "I just can't believe he said that about Trump," a mother whispered. "Through tears? After everything he's done for us?" Her husband, whose job had been saved by Trump's policies, clenched his jaw with anger. Massie turned his back on every one of us. But Vance, he's still fighting for what's right. That same wave of emotion played out in homes nationwide. Veterans saluted their screens. Grandmothers cried softly. Teenagers took to social media in outrage. "Massie betrayed us." Vance is showing what true courage looks like. Meanwhile, JD Vance was preparing for a national address. But this time, he wasn't just exposing lies, he was trying to heal a wounded country. "Sir," a staffer said, her voice trembling, "the whole country is watching. They need to hear from you." "I know," Vance replied, eyes focused. "And I'm ready." He stepped up to the podium, facing a wall of cameras. The world watched in silence. His voice was steady but heartfelt. "I know many Americans feel deeply hurt tonight," he began. What Congressman Massie said wasn't just an attack on President Trump, it was an insult to every citizen who has ever felt forgotten or dismissed. He paused, letting his words settle. "But let me be clear, we will never let corruption win. We will never let lies shout over truth." Then he held up a simple photograph. It showed President Trump surrounded by factory workers, smiling during a campaign stop. And with that image, JD Vance didn't just close a chapter, he reignited a movement. The situation goes far beyond typical politics. At its heart, about everyday Americans. I refuse to allow Thomas Massie or the people funding him to dismantle what we've worked so hard to build for America's future. The crowd responded with thunderous cheers. Online viewers were quick to share emotional reactions. One comment read, "Vice President Vance's sincerity brings tears to my eyes." Another added, "He's the only leader holding this country together right now." Meanwhile, Massie sat alone in his office, looking pale as messages from furious donors poured in. Each hour chipped away at his influence. In a last-ditch effort, Thomas Massie went on national TV. He looked rattled, but tried to project confidence. Vice President Vance is manipulating the public, he insisted. President Trump threatens. Constitutional order. MAGA has become dangerously cult-like. But suddenly, a breaking news alert cut him off. Recordings from Vance's team began to air. Massie's voice, cold and calculated, was heard clearly. Tell constituents whatever they want to hear, he said. As long as the money flows, I'll block Trump's agenda at every turn. The host interrupted immediately. Congressman. How do you explain these recordings? Massie froze. Silence filled the studio. He glanced around, mumbled a few words, then walked off the set. Across the country, Trump supporters were outraged. He betrayed us, one elderly woman cried in an interview, but many turned to Vance as a beacon of hope. That evening, he posted a strong statement online. Massie didn't just betray Trump, he betrayed America's values. The post exploded, gaining 15 million likes in just a few hours. As Massie's credibility crumbled, Washington was hit with a chill. Inside his home, Massie wiped sweat from his collar. Protesters had gathered outside with signs that read, "Massie betrayed America, we stand with Trump." Their voices rang through the neighborhood, "Traitor, traitor, traitor." Inside, Massie sat alone at the dining table, completely overwhelmed. His staff had gone silent. His closest advisors were resigning one after another. How did it all fall apart? So fast, he asked himself. I thought everything was under control. Across town, Vance stood before a sea of supporters. His voice resonated with emotion and strength. Massie's actions aren't just politics, he said solemnly. They're a personal betrayal of every mother, father, and soldier who believed in Trump's vision for America. A young girl clutched her red, white, and blue cap as she cried quietly. Thank you for standing up for the truth, Vice President Vance, she whispered, all across America. Vance's speech replayed in diners, living rooms, and phones. He's fighting for people like us, said a veteran, wiping away tears. Trump gave us back our hope. Vance is making sure we don't lose it again? Support surged online. Hashtags like #WeStandWithTrump, #VanceDefendsTruth, and #Massie must resign trended rapidly. Trying to recover, Massie recorded an apology video. But even as he looked into the camera, he seemed unsure. I may have spoken out of anger, he said. Weakly, but Vance is twisting the truth. I've always loved this country. He didn't get to finish. Another breaking news alert hit the screen. Massie's offshore accounts had been exposed. Documents released by Vance's team confirmed. Everything. The nation reacted in shock. Just like that, Massie's attempt at redemption vanished. Vance stood once again outside the White House, addressing the public with quiet intensity. I know many of you are hurting, he said. You trusted Massie. You believed in him. And he betrayed you, he paused, visibly emotional. But I promise you, President Trump, and I will never abandon you. We will fight for every forgotten American. In one living room, a mother wept while holding her baby. He's not just another politician, she said. He understands us. Vance leaned forward and delivered the line that took over every social feed. Thomas Massie tried to sell out America's future. But our values are not for sale. Cheers erupted across the country. People clapped through tears, overcome with emotion. Meanwhile, in a dark office, Massie stared at his silent phone. The reality hit him. He had lost everything. Then came the final blow. His biggest financial backer called. You're politically toxic, they said coldly. We're cutting you off. Click, the call ended. Every attempt Massie made to salvage his support ended in rejection. The same powerful figures who once backed him were now erasing his name from their playbooks outside his office. Crowds waved flags and shouted, MAGA forever, Massie never. Inside the White House, Vance watched the live protests. His eyes softened when he saw a little boy holding a hand-drawn sign. Trump saved my dad's job. Vance protects our dream. We can't let them down, Vance whispered. His aide nodded. America needs you now more than ever. Vance took a deep breath. Then let's finish this. Later that evening, he returned to national TV. His tone was steady, but you could feel the weight behind every word. Congressman Massie betrayed the very people who counted on him. Vance said, and the proof is undeniable. He took money to sabotage everything Trump built for working Americans. He paused, clearly moved. But hear this, our nation is stronger than one man's greed. Together we will rebuild what was broken. Together we'll protect the values that define us. Americans everywhere responded with emotion. In Alabama, a veteran saluted the screen. In Pennsylvania, a mother whispered, "Vance speaks for people like us." And Massie? He sat, alone in the dark, scrolling through thousands of brutal comments. "Step down. Your career is over. You betrayed America." Vance exposed the truth. His hands shook. His power was slipping away by the hour. The next morning, Vance held a press conference at the Capitol. The entire nation watched. Massie isn't against Trump because he disagrees with policy, Vance said. He's against him because Trump can't be bought. And Massie can't understand that. The crowd erupted in applause. Journalists sat stunned. Clips of the speech went viral instantly. Even Massie's former allies shared it, using tags like #MassieExposed and #TrumpVance228. In that moment, Massie realized the truth. Vance hadn't just taken him down, he'd ended his entire political future with one honest message across America. People didn't just feel anger anymore. They felt inspired. They saw leadership.